While many of us would prefer to look to the future, history is a part of everyone's lives. But sometimes what we were taught in school was only the tip of the historical iceberg. Here are 10 historical facts they never taught you in school. The Pony Express. The Pony Express is one of the most recognizable icons in American Old West lore. Following the gold rush in 1848, demands for a faster mail delivery service grew, so 3 local businessmen had an idea. They decided to use mounted riders rather than traditional stagecoaches for faster delivery. They established 184 stations along their route, about 10 miles apart, roughly the distance a horse can gallop before becoming tired. Most people don't know that this mail delivery system only lasted 19 months. Postmortem photography. When the daguerreotype, the first camera, was invented in 1839, it made it possible for middle-class families to have images of their loved ones. Many families were not wealthy enough to afford painted portraits, so photography sessions were much faster and less expensive. At the time, childhood mortality was extremely high, so using the daguerreotype to photograph the dead became a very common practice in Victorian-era Britain. Sometimes the only images of the deceased were taken after they had passed. The dead would be positioned to appear as though they were sleeping or propped up in chairs, sometimes with the entire family. Heroin as medicine. Before it became an illegal narcotic, heroin was used as medicine. It was used as an anti-diarrheal, a cough suppressant, and a way to soothe a fussy baby. Medical professionals used opium to develop morphine around 1810. They were amazed by its ability to alleviate severe pain and named it after the Greek god of dreams, Morpheus, because of the euphoric side effects. Then, in 1894, Germany had developed their own version, calling it heroin. They claimed it was a non-addictive alternative to morphine. The drugs could be bought over the counter from pharmacies until the 1920s. Leif Erikson. 500 years before Christopher Columbus was said to have discovered the Americas, Norse explorer Leif Erikson is actually considered the first European to discover North America. Leif was the son of Eric the Red, a Viking and founder of the Norse settlement now known as Greenland. After leaving Greenland to travel to Norway in 999 AD, Leif converted to Christianity and was instructed to bring the religion back to Greenland. It is believed that upon his return voyage, Leif was blown off course and came across the northern tip of what is now Newfoundland, though he did not settle the area. The swastika. 5,000 years before Hitler turned the swastika into one of the most feared and hated symbols in the modern world, it had a very different meaning. The symbol of the hooked cross represented good luck and well-being and dates as far back as the 2nd century BCE. It is a sacred symbol even today in many Eastern religions like Buddhism and Hinduism and is seen in temples and homes. By 1920, the symbol was associated with the German ideology of a pure race and was later adopted by the Nazi Party during World War II, forever changing and stigmatizing the once innocent symbol. Female hysteria treatment. The idea of female hysteria dates back as far as the ancient Greeks. They believed that a woman's uterus was in fact a living creature that roamed her body, causing illness and distress. By the late 1850s, female hysteria was one of the most commonly diagnosed mental illnesses in women. Symptoms of female hysteria were said to include insomnia, nervousness, and lack of appetite. In extreme cases, physicians would order the removal of the uterus or a trip to the insane asylum. But more commonly, the treatment involved the doctor manually stimulating the clitoris. Given the overwhelming amount of patients that were diagnosed with female hysteria, physicians developed the first vibrators to allow women to relieve their own symptoms. World's shortest war. The Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896 was a conflict between the military of the United Kingdom and the Zanzibar Sultanate. It began with the death of a pro-British sultan. His successor and cousin then took over the palace within hours of his death without the approval of the British diplomats. He was warned to stand down but began to gather his armies instead. Seeing this as an act of war, the British also gathered their troops. The British offered the new sultan an ultimatum: stand down or be destroyed. He refused and the British opened fire. The sultan escaped and left his remaining people to fend for themselves. Within 38 minutes, the war had ended. Dr. Eugene Lazowski. Known as the Polish Schindler, Eugene Lazowski was a Polish medical doctor during World War II. When Germany invaded Poland, Lazowski and fellow doctor Stanislaw Matulewicz began to experiment with bacterial injections. They discovered that the vaccine for typhus, a highly contagious bacteria that can be fatal, causes the person injected to test positive for the disease without the symptoms. Knowing the Nazis were terrified of disease, they injected the residents of the town and managed to fake an epidemic. Rather than transporting the Jewish residents to death camps, the Nazis quarantined the towns instead. This deception saved the lives of nearly 8,000 people. Mad as a Hatter. Some think the expression "mad as a hatter" comes from Alice in Wonderland, but that's not the case. In the 19th century, felt hats were a popular fashion for men in Victorian England, Europe, America, and Russia. The people that made the hats, known as hatters, worked animal fur through a solution that contained mercury to create the felt. It was later discovered that prolonged exposure to the vapors caused mental confusion and neurological damage, which made the hatters appear to be insane. The syndrome came to be known as Mad Hatter disease. Foot binding. Also known as lotus feet, foot binding was the practice in Imperial China of binding a girl's feet before the age of 6 to stop them from growing. The girls' toes would be bent underneath the sole of their foot and tied tightly with ribbon up to their ankles. They would then be made to walk until their foot broke, which would tie the bindings tighter. The process could take up to 3 years, and their feet would remain deformed for the rest of their lives. Girls with lotus feet were considered to be the most beautiful and sexually pleasing and earned them a higher rank in society. The practice of foot binding began to die out in the 1920s, but didn't stop completely until the late 1950s. We hope you enjoyed this video and that you might have even learned something new. Please subscribe to The Riches for more incredible videos daily, and don't forget to give us a thumbs up before you go. Thanks for watching!